Today, we're talking about the recent controversy surrounding Wilbur Soot and GeorgeNotFound. In Wilbur's case, how his former partner shared in a live stream multiple stories about her past experience being in an abusive relationship. And while the story never named any specific person, the speculation all led back to Wilbur Soot, who eventually responded to the claims in a very badly worded statement, which only made things worse. In the second half of the video, chapter markers are down below. We'll talk about the recent GeorgeNotFound situation, and how another streamer in the Minecraft community shared her story of receiving inappropriate behavior from an unnamed creator at VidCon, which led to GeorgeNotFound vaguely responding on Twitter, tying the allegations to his name, followed by a stream where he attempts to deflect some of the blame. This only created more back and forth, until GeorgeNotFound issued an apology that has now been retracted and replaced with a second video response. But I've pulled together all the details from both these stories, so by the end, you can understand what's going on with Wilbur Soot and GeorgeNotFound. If it's your first time here, hi, I'm Austin. I make videos staying caught up with the latest internet drama and news, so if that sounds like your thing, feel free to stick around. And if you ever come across a story you think I should cover, feel free to DM me it on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. Now, let's just get into it. First, we'll go over the Wilbur Soot situation, and how it leads into the second half of the video, where we'll cover the recent GeorgeNotFound controversy. Again, chapters are down below if you want to skip ahead. But our first story is about Wilbur Soot, a 27-year-old British content creator and musician, who is currently part of the band Lovejoy. And it all started when Wilbur's ex-partner, another content creator named Shubble, posted a 30-minute stream titled Talking About Something More Serious, during which she explains her past experience with an anonymous former partner.
I have always liked telling my different experiences that I've had in dating because it feels important to me to share what I've learned and maybe help other people to not make the same mistakes that I have before. I'm 30. I've dated a lot. I've gone on a lot of dates. I keep trying. And it's unfortunate that a lot of my dating history, there were a lot of bad people that tried to manipulate or control me. But that's not to say that every person that I've dated has treated me poorly. Some people just weren't the right people. And speaking out about my bad experiences has never felt as important as it does right now, because silence has always brought me peace. And this time it feels like my silence is not keeping my peace. It's only keeping somebody else's peace. And I never thought that I could be the kind of person to end up in a situation like I did. I never thought that could happen to me. And so for me, this is important because it could help anybody else see the signs sooner than I did, or hopefully avoid a similar situation entirely, because the truth is it was dangerous.
She continues by explaining that after telling her friends and therapist about the harmful behavior that her ex was displaying, she understood that she was being hurt in the relationship and had to do something, even posting on Reddit and receiving dozens of similar stories in response. She goes on to say,
And I was so mad at myself because I was lying too at a certain point to protect this person, because I knew that if I told my friends the truth, make him look really bad. He always cared more about how it looked. And that was really important, not what was true. And it was really subtle. When I hear about physical abuse, I think of hitting and punching. So I thought that this wasn't violent enough to be abuse. I thought that it was just like a constant accident that he kept hurting me, but he's not hitting me. And it didn't start as something that he did to hurt me. He had this habit of biting, which is so weird to me now, but he said that he had had this habit since he was a kid, and even his mom said that that was true. And he said it was just affectionate, and that might have been, I think that might have been true maybe at the start, but I also feel that I have good reason to believe that every part of it was a lie, but that's just my personal opinion. And I had no problem with just biting. That isn't even the most uncommon thing. But he did mention something early that I should have taken as a red flag. And he wanted to make sure that I was okay with him biting me, because he didn't want me to come back later and say that he abused me, which I thought was really weird considering he had never hurt me before. And so why would I call it abuse? And why was he thinking about that? And I thought he was being sweet, checking on me to make sure that I was still comfortable. But of course I was, because he hadn't hurt me. And why would I think he ever would?
Then she explains how things only started getting worse from here.
He started biting me more and more over a period of time, sort of throughout the whole relationship, and accidents of him biting too hard and really hurting me happened more and more frequently. But he always seemed genuinely sorry, and he decided that he didn't want to keep accidentally hurting me, so we were going to use a safe word so he could learn where my limit was, where my pain tolerance ended. And saying that out loud now, like, that's not very sound logic, but at the time I thought he cared about not hurting me. But in reality, it's like, why are you biting so hard? And why do you have to bite so hard? And it shouldn't be that hard of a problem to stop.
After this, she goes into detail about how her ex-partner would do this even around friends.
And he disguised it as this really quirky part of our relationship and was so comfortable sharing it with his friends, to the point that he would do it in front of them. He thought it was this really funny story to tell and a good bit to take my arm and bite me in front of everybody until I literally shout in pain. And then I have to laugh it off because I'm so embarrassed and I don't want to cause a scene in front of all of our friends. And I'm sure everyone was a little bit uncomfortable, but as long as I was saying that it was fine, nobody really felt like they needed to be concerned. And that's not anybody's fault because I was lying and it wasn't fine, because I would go home later and I'd tell him how uncomfortable I was, how much I didn't like being hurt all the time. And I needed him to really stop biting so hard. I didn't like it. And I tried telling him over and over again because he asked him to stop again. This time he said, this is who he is. He isn't going to change. Those were his words.
She continues by explaining how, towards the end of the relationship, he would constantly contradict himself and would argue with her when she called him out about things he definitely said.
He would insist that he had never said the thing that he said. He definitely did say. And then he would say something like, how are you so sure you're remembering correctly? Why are you always right? And he definitely said the things that I heard him say and other people heard him say. So
this is followed by Shubble talking about how he started routinely ignoring their safe word.
He had now at this point weaponized the safe word and was using it to ensure that I was hurt and on a constant basis. And he wasn't sorry anymore. I couldn't even tell you the last time he had apologized for doing it anymore, because now sometimes he would bite me and I would yell out the safe word because it hurt so bad, and he'd clamp down even harder. And just for a second, just for good measure, before letting go. And sometimes I'd say the safe word and he'd grind his teeth down on my skin. And sometimes he'd smile after, like a gloating grin.
She explains that during this entire time, she'd feel nauseous and would often have to leave their friend group to go be sick. Then this would happen.
But I felt so unwanted and ignored. And I would tell him that. And then he would reassure me that he wanted to be together and he loved me. He loved me more than I loved him, even. He would always insist that that was true, like that. I love you more. But he was like really serious about it.
She goes on to talk about the love bombing that happened during the beginning of the relationship.
And looking back, I do believe that the way I was swept off my feet at the beginning of this relationship was 100% love bombing. And we were friends for a time. At least people would have thought that, actually. But I use the word friend very loosely because we had actually never spoke to each other outside of group chats we were in together when, like, a handful of times throughout the whole time that we knew each other, but did not talk to each other. So I wouldn't have even called him my friend until he found out I was single, waited a few weeks to reach out, and then we started a friendship. And then that friendship turned romantic, and then he made these huge romantic gestures. He wrote me the most beautiful love letter that I had ever read. He called me his soulmate. He talked about forever 1 month in. He told me he hadn't been in a relationship in 5 years. He thought he could never find love again before he met me. He said he wanted someone to grow with. He wanted to be a dad. He had all his names picked out, and I didn't have a preference, because my feeling of it is if the timing is right and with the right person, I could. But if that doesn't work out in time or the time, I'm not super pressed about it. But I started opening my mind up to the idea with him because it seemed so important to him.
But after the honeymoon phase passed, he started to do a 180 on what he was initially telling her.
I kept trying to talk to him to figure out where he was later on when I could tell things like were declining. And now all of a sudden he's telling me he's not sure he wants kids at all. In fact, he has never been attached to the idea of kids. And I told him that isn't what he said before. And he said he's allowed to change his mind. And I'm of the opinion that in a relationship, There are a few things that you are not actually allowed to change your mind without letting your partner know. I think that kids is one of them. It wasn't even important to me. And I think marriage is one of them. So I brought that up next. And I asked if he still wanted marriage. He said he wanted to marry me. And then he said, now, I'm not I'm not the commitment guy. You know that. I didn't know that. Why are you dating me? In fact, he was telling me the exact opposite every day. He would tell me he still wanted to be together. He wanted to work on all of the problems. He wanted me at the end of everything. He did not want to break up. He made that very clear. And I have, though, caught him in lies before, but usually it was small stuff, and it wasn't anything that ever seemed worth rocking the boat over, which isn't normal for me. I hate lies, and yet I ended up lying for him. But he had lied about big things. And he had also been caught lying by his friends numerous times. So this is something that he feels is acceptable to do.
Towards the very end of the relationship, he wanted to have a talk just before he was leaving for a big trip, where Shubble offered many solutions to fix things, but her partner didn't want to hear it.
So no time to fix any of the problems all of a sudden because there are 3 days before he leaves. And he insisted he did not want to break up. He was expecting me to have a solution somehow magically, and I gave a number of solutions that would have a way forward for us to be together, but he refused to make any compromise whatsoever. And he said that the relationship was starting to feel like a responsibility towards the end. Also his words. So it wasn't a responsibility the whole rest of the time to him. And he was at this point basically flaunting that he would never prioritize me over anything. And I wasn't even asking for literally even the bare minimum. I was asking for so little. And I was watching him give exactly what I was needing in the relationship all over the place to anybody else who just happened to ask and just wasn't me. And he was never going to prioritize me over anything that would give him more fame or money. In fact, he said that himself. That was exactly why he was not going to compromise at all for a solution for us to be together, because he said he wanted to see how much fame and money he could get. And I just thought we wanted to be together. I thought that's what we both wanted, because that's what he was still saying he wanted too. But then he also admitted to me that he had grown to resent me. And I have to be thankful that he said that bit out loud. A lot of these bits he said out loud, because that was the last push that I needed to get myself out.
After this, she talks about even more issues she had to deal with following the breakup.
And in fact, we left things as we want to be friends, and he can never imagine not speaking to me again. And then he never spoke to me again. Outside of like a couple of exchanges where I needed to ask for my clothes to be shipped. So at least I got my clothes back. I had a whole closet full. However, he did throw away all of my other things without saying a word to me about it. Hundreds of dollars of things from my office were trashed without a word. And I didn't block him till 10 months later because I wanted an open door still. I really thought I wanted to be his friend, but I don't feel that way anymore.
Now, looking back, she notices even more glaring red flags that he showed in the past.
There was this one time that he pinned me down and asked me to try my absolute hardest to get him off of me. And I couldn't do it, obviously. And he said something to make the point that he was so much stronger than me that I wouldn't be able to fight him back. Fight back against what? What do you mean? You don't say shit like that to people? That's insane. And I was also sexually assaulted by my first boyfriend, and he knew that.
She continues by explaining how, instead of just breaking up with her, he'd lie about wanting to spend more quality time, while doing pretty much everything in his power to push her away. She also mentions this.
And I'm not saying any of this next part to be mean. He lived in filth like I have never seen. And I've seen filth. This was the worst. He would spill things on the floor and literally never clean them up. He got an ant infestation once and wasn't going to do anything about it because he said bugs are normal in British houses. So I had to buy ant killer. And he wouldn't clean his bathroom for months and months and months, but would constantly complain about how bad it smelled. And I would tell him, that's mold. It's mold. He complained about being tired all the time too, which I don't know if that was a lie or not, but mold. will do that too. But he would insist that it wasn't, somehow, without having cleaned in months. But it's not mold. When I met him, he was washing his clothes without detergent. Just it wasn't using that at all. And I don't know for how long before I met him. He was just running it with water and then hanging it on his filthy kitchen cabinets. And I felt bad. I felt bad because I felt like he needed someone to help him learn how to be cleaner. I thought he just didn't know how. And I listened to all of the struggles of his upbringing, and I was like, he just doesn't know how. Someone just needs to show him. And then I found out that he said he doesn't clean at all when I'm not there because he just waits for me to get there to do it. And I only found out about that after we broke up because he said it behind my back. I was doing all of the cleaning and laundry for him. Also, I had a separate bathroom. I want to make that clear. I wasn't using that bathroom. I had a separate bathroom that I cleaned for myself. I had cleaning supplies. I don't think he even actually knew I had cleaning supplies in there, but I had my own bathroom.
Everything about this guy sounds absolutely nasty. But it gets even worse because Shubble explains how he also just wouldn't pay for anything.
All the cleaning, all the laundry, all of it, I was paying for. All of the like paper towels, like soap, all of that only stayed in the house so long as I was buying it. I would arrive and there would just not be toilet paper in the whole house. There were paper towels instead. And who knows for how long too. I was paying for food more than half the time because he would often push me into ordering food for us even if I had paid for the last meal or the meal before that. And I'm of the opinion now that I shouldn't have been paying for any food. None at all. But I wanted to at least, I thought I was being equal by at least doing like a back and forth. But I ended up paying for food more often than just going back and forth anyway. And he would do this to his friends all the time too. But I was also paying for every plane ticket and the cat sitter, which cost roughly the amount of a plane ticket to England. And he never offered to help me pay after the couple of times he did come here to visit me because he paid for the flights that we would both take. But that only happened twice at the very beginning. I have actually had a friend tell me that this is financial abuse, but I don't know enough about that to say for myself. But I was telling him that I couldn't afford it all by myself all the time because I was losing money. I was never able to work properly there, and he wasn't traveling at all to see me anymore, even though he said he would. That was like the basis of our entire relationship starting off. So then he agreed to pay for the cat sitter so that it would be basically paying half the cost of my travels. And he did that once and then never did it again, despite many more months of dating. And I was traveling often. I had to because he was worried that we weren't spending enough quality time together. And then all of the time that he would have ever extra, he would choose to not spend it on me because there was an available choice. And he chose not to spend it with me often.
The stream wraps up with Shubble talking about why she shared this experience.
And I say all of this because I believe that people like this are genuinely dangerous. I believe he is dangerous. He was willing to lie. He was willing to do harm to someone he claimed to love more than anyone he has ever loved. His actions escalated. And I don't think that I'll be the last person that he hurts. And I felt like sharing my story was really important to warn people. I want people to see the signs that I refused to. I want you to listen to your body and get out as soon as possible. Tell your friends the truth and let them help you.
After this stream, Shubble's story went viral, with many people online speculating about who the abusive ex could be. However, many already suspected it was Wilbur Soot. And these suspicions were only verified after a former photographer for Wilbur tweeted this shortly after Shubble's stream, saying, "It's about who you think it's about." This was followed by community members sharing clips of Wilbur in the past that reference him having a habit of biting people.
To me?
Yeah.
He keeps biting me. Actually, Will bites both me sometimes, and I get so many bruises all the time from him biting me.
I thought you were saying that you bite people.
No, Will bites me.
Will hurt me more with biting. Wilbur Soot has bitten me harder than that.
Yeah.
He just bites everyone. He'd bite you.
Never bit me, Mom.
He would. Wilbur Soot bites.
You're on the boat, thanks.
The next day, on February 22nd, a former trumpet player for Wilbur's band Lovejoy tweeted this in support of Shubble's story. "Oh, I have so much I could say on this. I was also bitten, and saw it happen so many times. Shelby, I support you all the way." A few hours later, threads started popping up on Twitter, attempting to tie Wilbur Soot to the allegations. Then, on February 25th, this tweet with a linked document was shared by a member of Wilbur's Twitch mod team. Within the document, they write, "Something else I want to ask for is to please not harass me or any other of Wilbur's mods. Everyone I've spoken to on the team has made it clear that they wish to distance themselves from Wilbur following this new information. Furthermore, the decision to close down the Discord server was not Wilbur's. He wasn't consulted. He didn't ask for it to be closed, nor do I think he knows it's closed. Wilbur truly has nothing to do with the Discord, and seeing people conspire that the staff team has been complicit in defending Wilbur in any way has been deeply upsetting to many of us, myself included. It saddens me that energy is spent on this when we have played no part. The Discord server was shut down by the admins, following requests to do so from the team. I don't think it's difficult to understand that people don't wish to spend hours moderating a Discord server, which is dedicated to someone who they believe is an abuser. In the same breath, I want to make it clear that if Wilbur goes live to address the situation, or without addressing the situation at all, no Twitch mods will show up. And we will remove the moderation bot from his channel. The only mod action that would be taken by us would be to remove the permanent emote-only mode. Without mods, it's impossible for him to go live, unless he somehow magically figures out how to block terms and turn on emote-only mode. I don't know if he will ever address it, let alone on a stream. I honestly don't have much faith that he will address it at all. Now, after this, instead of quickly responding to all of the allegations, Wilbur took the 6 days following Shubble's stream to gather his thoughts for a statement that he tweeted on February 27th. It says, "In the past week, a series of allegations have been made over my conduct from an ex-girlfriend. I want to emphasize that, although I feel it fair to offer my perspective, this person's feelings are completely valid. I've taken my time sharing this statement as I wanted to process and respond respectfully, and with the hope to gain a deeper understanding for the situation. During our relationship's final months, I regrettably became slobbish, disrespectful, and selfish. These actions caused a lot of pain to my ex-girlfriend, and I've since sought therapy to address these behaviors, making significant lifestyle changes to rectify my past actions. I've come to realize how much my past behavior hurt this person, but I truly, compassionately believe I have made great strides from the person I once was, and hope I can continue to grow and improve on this trajectory. The allegation of abuse, particularly in the form of biting, deeply shocked me. Throughout our relationship, I understood our numerous conversations and text message exchanges on the subject that this behavior was consensual, playful, and reciprocally enjoyed. I truly believe those personal message exchanges reflect mutual affection and understanding. Out of respect for her, I choose not to publish them, and I emphasize my perspective is not shared to diminish or invalidate anyone's feelings. Instead, I share it in the hope that I can offer a genuine, fair, and relevant insight into my understanding of the situation. While I may perceive our interactions differently, I recognize that this person has processed and expressed feelings of hurt. I want to extend my sincerest apologies for any pain that I caused. I am fully committed to understanding and addressing her concerns going forward. I hope my perspective sheds light on the situation without detracting from its message. I am dedicated to earning and maintaining the trust of those around me, and hope I can continue to be held to these high standards I wish to attain and maintain." Yeah, not exactly the best apology to say you had to go to therapy over how much you hurt your ex, while still trying to deflect any claims of abuse. He didn't even deny that all of these things happened. It's apparently just his perspective that's wrong, even though he would routinely ignore their safe word. But unfortunately for Wilbur, his response was done so poorly that even his own subreddit wouldn't stand by him. Because after his tweet went up, the r/Wilbur Soot mods immediately posted, "Is there anyone else called Wilbur Soot we can make this subreddit about? Otherwise, we'll probably move towards archiving in about a week." With the eventual decision being turn r/Wilbur Soot into a Wilbur Wright fan subreddit. Their new bio reads, "If the 19th century was the age of steam, the 20th may be the age of the conquest of the air. And who shall say positively that the potentialities of the flying machine are not as great as those of the steam engine. And the new banner is just incredible. Now the subreddit is littered with frequent Wilbur Wright appreciation posts, which I feel like is the best case scenario for the direction his fans could have gone. We also saw Wilbur's friends and other content creators in the Minecraft community sharing their thoughts about the situation. The creator Ranboo said, "Anyone who tries to downplay or discredit a victim's stories for any reason, especially for the sake of being able to watch a creator's content, is an idiot. Support victims before anything else. Always. Take care of yourselves." And in regards to people being upset about not being able to listen to Wilbur's music anymore, they added, "Separate the art from the artist, listen to a different fucking song." We also saw the creator Dream post a response to Wilbur's statement, which somehow ended up being longer than the initial statement itself. I'll show both images on screen here if you want to pause and read. A few days later, on March 1st, news came out that Wilbur Soot unmodded all of his previous Twitch mods. And in order to not get banned for having an unmodded channel, he created an alt account named Jebediah Springfield, which ended up being a weird reference to a character from The Simpsons that got married to and divorced a woman named Shelbyville Manhattan. And if it wasn't mentioned before, Shubble's real name is Shelby. A few days later, on March 5th, Shubble addressed Wilbur's response at the beginning of her stream, beginning by reaffirming certain parts of her story as true, and then adding,
"And if you think all of our mutual friends who knew us both intimately in private are supporting me blindly, you aren't being honest. I don't know how you wouldn't assume people we spent every day with wouldn't know more than you about this situation. You are not entitled to everything that everybody knows. Not everybody is ready to share their stories and experiences, but they have all asked you to support me, and that is not blind. What is blind is pretending that all they have to go off of is my word alone. Let's not ignore the boys who said themselves that they have witnessed him manipulate them and their friends, all of which who were 18 at the time, by the way. I am not the only one. Give them time before you start calling me a lying whore, perhaps. I didn't coordinate this because I didn't know how many more people had experiences to share. I actually didn't know biting was something that had happened before me until after I spoke about it. I didn't know. That's why I needed to do it. I'm sorry that everything couldn't conveniently come out all at the same time. Everyone who knew us both mutually have come together in solidarity and asked you to support me, and I am asking you to listen to all of them too. It's not just me. Continuing to pretend that it isn't helpful.
She then gets into what Wilbur's statement is missing.
What I endured was so much more than just slobbishness and disrespect. It's offensive to downplay it that much. And in my opinion, the most obvious thing to me is that the apology is not genuine at all. If it was, I would have been referred to by name, simply. I believe at bare minimum, a requirement for a sincere apology is to say the name of who you are speaking to. I think by not saying my name, that can only be done out of disrespect. That's what I believe. To me, it completely contradicts any claim to have changed. And I proved on stream that he's lied, even if just that one time. I felt that was a big deal.
She wraps up her response by showing appreciation for everyone that supported her so far. 3 days following this, on March 8th, a cosplay content creator named Alice came forward with her experience of abuse during her past relationship with Wilbur. The tweet says, "These past few years have been difficult, but I finally feel safe enough to speak out about my experience with Wilbur." And the images attached to the post read, "Hello, I'm Alice. I dated Wilbur back in 2019, and I want to speak out about my experience. I felt like I couldn't talk about this sooner because I was scared of his public influence and the potential backlash from fans. But now after hearing Shelby's story, seeing the support she's been shown, and admiring her bravery, I finally feel safe to break my silence on our relationship. Back in 2019, at the beginning of the relationship, I was immediately shown a lot of affection, very reminiscent of love bombing. One of his close friends at the time warned me in confidence to be careful. as if they had seen people get hurt in the past. But I believed he was good inside. After a month, the honeymoon period was over, and it was like I was dating a completely different person. I was told to keep our relationship a secret, but was framed in a way that implied that it was for my safety, as if it was in my best interest to keep this a secret despite my own feelings. I believed that he enjoyed having control in the relationship. I would have to hide as he streamed and sit silently in the corner waiting for him to go offline. He would say condescending things to me about my interests and the type of content I created, as if he just didn't take it or me seriously, and would only be enthusiastic about his future plans with music and desire for fame. I never felt like he was encouraging towards me or any of my goals, and in the last few months, he made me feel extremely unlovable and unwanted. I had suffered with self-harm tendencies in 2019. He ignored the marks on my body and only took interest in retelling his own life struggles. I also experienced the biting habit, which has already been elaborated on by Shelby. After a while, I noticed that it was always me putting the effort into the relationship, so I decided one day to not be the one to message first, just to see what would happen. And he never spoke to me again, so the relationship dissolved. Skipping ahead to 2021, we had spoken briefly over an Instagram DM about the relationship and meeting up for closure on how things went in 2019. I gave him a second chance and met up hoping to get some answers. We walked through densely populated areas of town where we got stopped multiple times by his fans. In hindsight, this felt very intentional, almost as if it was to flaunt his influence and desirability to me. We went to a bar to talk, and he then proceeded to get me very drunk. He got us an Uber back to his house. I ended up blacking out in his bed due to the alcohol. But the last thing I remember was him non-consensually removing my clothes. The next morning, he proceeded to tell me that I must be a lesbian because I wasn't interested in him. These past years have been extremely difficult to navigate because of this. I couldn't go online without seeing him everywhere, and being adored as this soft boy who heroically respects women and mental health issues. I couldn't even go to conventions and enjoy my own hobbies without seeing people dressed up as him. Shelby was right. Staying quiet wasn't bringing me any peace. It was only keeping his. So far, we haven't seen any response from Wilbur regarding the new allegations. But we did see Shubble reply in support of Alice's story. And with that, we're pretty much caught up on everything surrounding Wilbur Soot. Please let me know what you think about the situation and anything I missed down in the comments. Now, let's talk about the controversy involving the 27-year-old content creator GeorgeNotFound, which started the next day on March 9th, when a creator named Caitibugzz hosted a 30-minute stream titled My Story. It begins with her explaining that if it wasn't for Shubble coming forward and opening up about her experience, she wouldn't have had the courage herself to come forward. Then she gets into her story, which happened at VidCon 2023 in Anaheim, California.
Last year, at the beginning of summer, I was assaulted by a significantly older and popular content creator. I was freshly 18 and had just graduated high school a few weeks prior. I was drunk in a hotel room with other people around me when it happened. He was someone I had once watched, and he was 8 years older than me and far more powerful.
After this, she explains how her and her friends ended up in a hotel room hanging out with a group of larger creators, with her alleged abuser DMing her after the first hangout and being obviously flirty despite being 8 years older than her at the time. The next night when they all hung out, she notes that she was drunker than before and explains this happening.
We sat on the couch and answered questions about each other, drinking a bunch, and the older guy sat right next to me while playing. I confused my nerves for excitement, as I had never been around such a big creator before. I remember getting drunker and drunker and really tired around this time. It was about 3 a.m. Right before the incident, I had answered a question about my age. We were playing a drinking game and talking about sex, and I admitted to everyone in the room that I was 18 and that I was a virgin at the time. I remember back now to him answering questions during the game about back when he was 19 and when he was in college, noticing how my future was his past, and I wondered how he felt sitting so close to me. It was a little after that when I resorted to playing games on my phone when it happened. Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch in front of everyone. He disguised it with a simple, "Are you ticklish?" I coughed out a no, still staring at my phone. I was overly aware of the fact that we were in front of other people, the fact that everyone else was sitting around us, watching us, including my best friend, and that his hand was inching further to places I hadn't asked for it to be. He made a game out of my embarrassment, where he would touch me in certain areas to make me lose the phone game I was playing. I was scared, and I felt sick, either from the alcohol or from his touch. It didn't matter because my mind was a blur. I didn't speak or move. I remember being afraid to even breathe. I stayed there for a while, hoping my stillness could make me disappear. I eventually had to stand up after many minutes for it to stop. I was scared to leave or make a scene out of the embarrassment.
The next day, she mentions another creepy interaction with this older creator.
The night lasted until 6 a.m. I was still drunk, either from alcohol or tiredness. I went to leave, and the older guy decided to leave with me. We walked to the elevators, where I didn't get on. He then pretended that the elevator was broken, and that he couldn't leave, telling me to get in the elevator to prove it was broken. And then after a few minutes, he ended the night with a "guess I'm going now," leaving with a wounded puppy look. He proceeded to Instagram message me for a bit after that, simple flirting or asking about the next convention I was going to, saying stuff about seeing me there. Simple messages ultimately filtered into nothing.
I'm not sure why any 26-year-old is flirting with an 18-year-old, especially by tickling them. Like, what is your problem?
I was scared to speak out because I thought it was my fault and that I didn't deserve to. I was scared of him and all of those who surrounded him. I was scared of his power. I was scared I was mistaken or remembering wrong. I hoped I was remembering wrong. I was scared to go to any more conventions on the chance that I'd see him again. I never thought I'd be strong enough to talk about it or for what may follow. I'm haunted by him everywhere. In usernames, profile pictures, in my own past. I lost the passion I once had for content, for anything really. The association never went away. All the years I spent creating this community felt like a waste because of one night. I didn't even want to log on to this app, all over something that I never asked for.
After this, she wraps up her story section by saying,
"My story is about power and age and consent. It pisses me off that they can hide behind their power while victims are left helpless, no matter what scenario. It pisses me off that he thought he had the right to do what he did, that he did it even in my silence. This isn't about drama. This is about everyone who's watching that is like me. This isn't about canceling. This is about real people's lives. I live this every night and every morning. With every touch I feel, I relive that room. It's about connections. One of my best friends, Rue, and I have bonded over similar experiences. And I'm sure there's many others like us. I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by friends who support me. Without them, I wouldn't be half as strong, and I wouldn't be here saying all this. You don't have to believe me or my story, because I know the truth, and so does he. He knows, and I have creators and friends that also know, and some who were there.
During the last part of the stream, Caiti reads a diary entry of hers from the day after everything happened. I'll put a link to this stream and the timecode where she reads this down below if you want to get the full story. But it pretty much goes through the same amount of detail as her prior explanation, so we're going to keep moving. Under the tweet announcing this stream, Caiti writes, "I want to also make it clear. Although I was inspired by Shelby, our abuser is not the same. I hope she can take the time to heal. I hope everyone can." Shortly after, Caiti went public with her story about an anonymous older content creator assaulting her. GeorgeNotFound tweeted this, "I will be doing a very serious stream later today. This post is just to make that clear. I am gathering all the information and evidence to share. I have never and would never break someone's sexual boundaries or assault anyone." And quickly after this tweet, the claims went viral across Twitter, with many of Caiti's friends coming out against George's denial of assault. By the next day, there still hadn't been a response. and some people were questioning where he disappeared to. The end of the day came around, and Caiti tweeted this in response to George's denial of her claims. The image reads, "We are waiting. Pull whatever you can find. I also have screen recorded everything. I planned on using it to support my case if needed. But please, share it on my behalf if you'd like, because we both know what happened. That's why I can sleep at night without scrambling for screenshots to try and twist. That's why you're scared. Because me and every other creator know the truth. And you do too. That's something you have to live with. Yes, I was naive, but I have room to change, to grow up. 8 years exactly. And when I'm your age, I'll be 10 times the person you are. And you will always be the 27-year-old still acting like a child. I am not scared of you anymore. I've been waiting so long to say this, but you're a fucking coward. Goodbye for now." Later the next day, on March 11th, GeorgeNotFound responded to Caitibugz's story in a stream titled "Serious Conversation, Ads Are Off." On YouTube, the stream was uploaded with the title addressing a very serious allegation. He starts by explaining why he's been delayed in his response.
Recently, a streamer named Caitibugzz went live and told a story involving me about sexual assault. So in this stream, I'm going to be addressing it. I was originally planning on doing this all live, and that's why I originally tweeted saying that I would be live the day that it happened. But I simply did not feel comfortable doing it live and needed to make sure that I had all the details in place and just wanted to make sure it was all perfect as it happened.
After this, he says that he recorded a video of his explanation earlier, then edited out the blank spaces and added a few relevant screenshots. And just before the video starts, he says,
I'm going to be telling the whole story, so it might not seem like everything is completely relevant, but I do need to tell the whole story for it to make sense and to fully inform you guys. So please watch the video in its entirety before forming opinions, as this is very important. Finally, before I play the video, do not send hate to Caiti. That is not the goal of this, and I do not want you guys doing that. So let's play the video.
He begins by explaining the 2 times he met Caitibugzz in real life, which both were at VidCon 2023 in Anaheim. He shows a quick video of Dream's hotel room, saying that it was used as a main hangout space for creators each night after the convention. Next, he explains that Caiti's friends wanted Dream to come to a party, but he was still in his era of wearing his Dream mask and he didn't want to go out. Then, showing a screenshot of Caiti's friend group insisting to come back to Dream's hotel to hang out, even though he told them that they could stay at the party. George says that at the time he was already hanging out with Dream and had never met the girls before they showed up, so he didn't know Caiti's age. That night, they all played drinking games together, and George says that
My perspective of things is that I am with people that are over the age of 21 in a scenario where we are doing things that people that are over the age of 21 are doing, like drinking. And also the people that came from an event where they had very heavy security. This was an official VidCon after party, and with previous VidCon after parties, I even had problems getting into these events. There was one time where they didn't let me in because they couldn't confirm the legitimacy of my UK ID. They said they weren't trained to look at foreign IDs. So they didn't even let me in despite me being 26 at the time. And also since Caiti's stream, I've gone back and reviewed texts from the time, and there was actually a picture where it was shown that they had this 21 plus wristband on one of their wrists. So from my perspective, it's a bunch of 21 plus year olds hanging out. I have no reason to think otherwise.
the next day, after the convention, George says that Dream invited him to hang out again. Caiti's friend group is texting Dream, trying to get him to go out to a party, but he doesn't feel like it and invites them all to come hang out again. And George includes some group text screenshots of everyone enthusiastically trying to get passes to get into the hotel. Also showing a screenshot of the friend group insisting on playing the same drinking game as last night, despite Caiti's story implying that the older guys pushed them to drink. Then he addresses the situation when they were sitting next to each other, when Caiti said she was using a phone game to avoid interaction with himself and the others.
This is a quote, resorted to playing games on her phone to avoid the awkward situation. Now, I just don't see how this is the case. She's implying that she is using her phone to essentially escape such an awkward scenario that she's in. But that's just not how it happened. And this is why. She brought up the phone game as kind of a point. The game was honestly the central point of the interaction at this part of the night. It was a very social thing. You know, she was passing the phone around. We were all playing the game and bantering about it, just having fun with the game. So I don't see how like she resorted to it and was like using it in that context. She wasn't being awkward at all. There was no sense of uncomfortability from her. She was laughing and playing with everyone. And yeah, I'm not really sure why she phrased it like this. We actually continued to send each other high score updates even weeks after the event. To add further context to this moment, we were all actually sitting on the couch that was in the hotel room playing this game on her phone.
After this, he explains that he never heard her say anything about her age throughout the night.
During this, me and Caiti were at the far end of the couch and we were cuddling together. We had been cuddling for, I'd say, around an hour at this point, playing the game, talking, and just having fun. And for clarity, I had my hand around her waist above her clothes. So with her statement where she's saying that she's resorting to playing games on her phone, I just don't really understand it. And I think that the picture that she's painting is really dark, when in reality, she seemed very happy with the situation, was having a good time. I also want to address a fact that she claimed that would confirm that I know her age. She said that she had answered a question about her age during a drinking game, and we were talking about sex, and that she admitted to everyone in the room that she was 18 and a virgin at the time. Now, I just don't remember this happening. I'm not saying this to just pretend like it didn't happen. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I did not hear it happen. We're not just all sitting down and not moving. It's a chaotic environment. I could have been getting a drink. I could have been talking to someone else. I just did not know that that was said.
And following this, he responds to her story of him inappropriately touching her.
So then, this is when her most important claim happens. I'm just going to read the quote. She says, "Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch, in front of everyone. He disguised it with a simple, 'Are you ticklish?' I coughed out a no, and still staring at my phone, I was overly aware of the fact that we were in front of other people. The fact that everyone else was sitting around us, watching us, including my best friend, and that his hand was inching further to places I hadn't asked it to be. Again, as I mentioned before, we had previously been cuddling on this couch for around an hour, but I did place my hand on her waist under her shirt. The way it's phrased makes it sound like it just happened out of nowhere, when in reality we had been cuddling for over an hour at this point, and it was not out of nowhere. It was also around half an hour until I started moving my hand further up, and the way it's phrased just makes it seem like it happened pretty instantly and pretty quickly. There was nothing quick about it. It was very slow, and I was very cautious about it and making sure that she was comfortable throughout the process. Me and Caiti were very touchy, very cuddly, and very slowly got more intimate. I've always been overly cautious with consent, and this is not just because I'm a creator. I've been like this since before I was a creator, and I think that's just the way I am and just the way it should be. Nothing came out of nowhere. Everything progressed very slowly throughout the night. And also, before I continue, I want to make it clear that the furthest anything ever got was under the shirt touching and cuddling. Now, obviously, people don't typically ask if everything is okay, even such as touching someone's waist under their shirt before they do it. But in this case, I was extremely slow, and she was engaging with me the entire time, laughing, cuddling with me, and even playfully fighting me.
He then admits to tickling her while she was playing a game on her phone. But he remembers things differently.
She says, later, he made a game out of my embarrassment where he would touch me in certain areas to make me lose the game I was playing. Now, I actually remember this quite vividly. I remember she was playing the game, and there were parts where it would be very easy to lose if you were distracted. And she's right, I did do that. There were points where she was playing the game, and she was at a point where it was easy for her to mess up, and I would, for example, tickle her or like squeeze her, and when I did this, she would laugh, she would turn around and smile at me, or she would play fight with me because I had just made her lose the game. She also says how, quote, I didn't speak or move. I remember being afraid to even breathe. I stayed there for a while, hoping my stillness could make me disappear. Now, to reiterate, anytime that I did this, it was met with her either smiling, laughing, play fighting with me, and there was no reason for me to believe that she was uncomfortable with it. She was not moving. She was not speaking. Of course, I don't believe that silence is consent. I just want to make sure that it is abundantly clear. She was visibly and physically responding well to everything that we were doing.
After this, he explains that Caiti got up earlier in the night to say goodbye to a few friends that left, but she decided to stay and hang out more by choice. Then he shares his perspective of the elevator incident.
This is a quote. I went to leave, and the older guy then decided to leave too. This is phrased in a way that makes me look kind of creepy, to be honest. She's basically saying she left, so I decided to leave too, which is not the case. What actually happened is Dream had decided he was too tired and was going to bed. So the night was over and we all left. She then goes on to tell a story about the elevator and how I joked about it being broken to try get her to go in with me. So Caiti actually had her own hotel room on the same floor as Dream. So she actually didn't have to take the elevator. She walked me to the elevator when she didn't have to and said goodnight to me, which was nice of her. I did joke with her about coming in the elevator by pretending that it was broken. I went into the elevator, the doors closed, and I would press the doors open button to make it open again. I did this a few times and she didn't go along with it, which I respectfully took, obviously, and ended up just going down to my room. So yeah, she didn't have to take the elevator, yet she chose to walk with me to the elevator to say goodnight to me, which I think is interesting given how she's saying how she was so upset with it.
Okay, but you should retire the broken elevator bit though. That part of the story still remains creepy. Following the end of VidCon, George says that they've always been friendly in the DMs, showing a few screenshots of their playful banter. Then he explains how genuinely surprised he was to hear her story.
Honestly, I was very shocked to hear her say the things that she did say during her stream. When I first opened up her stream, it was after she'd already streamed it, but not long after, so people hadn't yet made the connection that it was relating to me. And when watching it, I was actually interested. I was thinking, okay, what's this going to be about? And then when she started saying more and more details, I realized, wait, this is about me. I was very confused, very shocked, and didn't quite know what to think, given I had no impression of any wrongdoing throughout this whole relationship that I had with her. None at all. Like, it was, if anything, it was the opposite. I thought we had a pretty good relationship, despite the fact that we actually hadn't talked in a while. I thought if I had seen her in real life again, everything would be fine and we would be friends. It was actually around this point, after VidCon had finished and we were messaging, that I found out her age. And since then, I never pursued anything going forward, and I essentially stopped messaging her. Her last message to me was August 1st, 2023, and I haven't replied to her since then. After I watched her stream, I was pretty confused. I didn't understand how her account of the story had been so different from what actually happened. A lot of the facts that she said just didn't happen at all, or were phrased in ways that just make me look as bad as possible. Saying things like, I insisted on her playing drinking games, or that she was frozen in place, or that she was scared. She was having fun. She was enjoying herself. She was showing this with her body language, with the way that she smiled, the way that she laughed, and just her overall general demeanor. Now, one thing that I think is very important to differentiate here is that I do believe that she regrets being affectionate with me, and that really does make me feel terrible. I never want to make anyone feel uncomfortable or regret their interactions with me, or anything along those lines, regardless of if it's sexual or not. And I am truly, really sorry if I contributed towards that.
The video wraps up with George saying that it's unfair to act like he's a bad person because of a situation that happened over such a small amount of time. Then he speculates that she only started feeling this way because her friend group has grown to hate his friend group.
So now what I'm thinking is, why would she come out and say it like this? Why is she saying this? Now, I don't think she's purposefully being malicious or trying to hurt me or ruin my career or anything like that. But what I do think is that she is surrounded by a friend group that completely despises me and my friend group. And this is quite a specific scenario that probably doesn't really happen that much, especially publicly. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of hard to talk about it. But I think after VidCon, she obviously had told some of her friends about what happened. Whether or not that was in a negative connotation, I do not know. I wasn't part of these conversations, of course, but she clearly told them about this scenario. Now, when these people that are around you all completely despise me and my friends, they're obviously going to look on this poorly. To add context to this, she actually mentions in her stream, I remember a friend seeing me in the lobby on the way, and they were worried by the way I was acting and asked if I was okay. I was really drunk, and it was an eerie feeling like they could sense something was wrong. Now, this person is in Caiti's friend group, and they were concerned that a group of 5 people were going up to Dream's room to join 3 additional people, which is an interesting concern to have. I actually have heard from another source that overheard this conversation and thought it was quite strange that she was worried about this. Now, I think it seems very likely that after 8 months of you being around friends that hate me and my friends and constantly talking badly about us publicly as well, and privately, don't know what they say privately, but can't be any better than what they say publicly. Obviously, that is going to affect the way that you view the experience. and it's going to make you look at it differently. You're going to second guess it. You're going to be thinking about it. And clearly, it changed the way that she thought about it. And I just think it's completely unfair to judge me and my actions based on how you feel about it now, 8 months later, versus how you felt at the time. Because at the time, you were not uncomfortable with it. And I know I'm repeating myself a million times, but I have to. You were smiling, happy, laughing, playing along with it, everything.
And that is the entire response from GeorgeNotFound, which unfortunately fueled a large part of the community to start hating on Caiti and her story, claiming that she's just exaggerating about her experience of the incident and lying about a few of the details. And the hate didn't get any better when Dream came out in defense of George's response. In a massive Reddit post titled, "My Honest and Open Point of View, Dream," which has now been deleted and replaced with the text, "New information has made this post outdated." However, the internet is forever, so I found a tweet that has screenshots of the entire post. I'll link the tweet down below if you want to read the full thing, but I'll go through some of the beginning. Based on hearing both recounts of stories, being there myself, and talking to everyone that was there afterwards, George's recounting of events is much closer to what actually took place. I think people expressing that someone did not consent to touching or cuddling because they did not verbally speak it is extremely dishonest. You can clearly consent without verbally specifically saying something, just as you can nod your head to say yes. Silence is not consent, but I was there. And although I did not know that any sexual touching had taken place, I can say for a matter of fact that their interactions were extremely positive throughout the night, and she had many opportunities of separation, even getting up and down off of the couch and laying back down with him after the alleged sexual assault took place, and her best friend leaving after what took place, and her choosing to stay for hours. No one that was there had anything but positive experiences to share until many months later. And I was shocked to hear anything at all. Everyone was already drinking, and in no way was them drinking along with everyone an inappropriate action. Everyone was drinking, and everyone was in and out. Yes, she was not 21. No, it's not a normal thing at all to stop creators at a convention, or anyone for that matter, from drinking because of that. Many of the people I've seen criticize this fact already have very publicly drunk many times with under 21 content creator, and are not being impartial. I will agree with George in saying that there is a group of content creators that have a very large hatred for me and the Dream Team. I'm not exactly sure why. I have some ideas, but it's been going on for over a year now. Multiple of these content creators have spread total lies about me, and take any opportunity they can to spread negative rumors. Caiti is not one of them, to be clear, but she is friends with many of them, and this is even something we discussed in person. I obviously can't say for certain that this has anything to do with what she said, but I can assume it had an impact on the lens she viewed George through. In the remaining paragraphs of the post, Dream speculates on why this friend group hates him. But again, this entire post was later deleted by Dream for misinformation. The night of March 11th, Caitibugzz tweets this in response to George's video, addressing many of his claims. The tweet says, "For now, goodbye." And her statement begins, "For now, this is what I have to say. He admitted to touching me, that I was drunk, that I verbally didn't consent. In my mind, the conversation is over. He said, silence does not equal consent. Yet, 1, never got verbal confirmation from me. 2, chose to move to a sexual act on the couch, where everyone was hanging out, without asking. I don't know how those two facts coexist. How can I consent when drunk? I prepared proof on the idea he wouldn't admit to it, that he would deny touching me or being there, but he admitted it. That I was drunk, and he touched me in front of everyone. That I never said yes, nor did he ask. And I'm still asked for a response, proof, explanations. Frankly, I think it's fucking insane. If you still need more after hearing him admit those two simple facts, then nothing I can say is going to change your mind. But here it is anyway. Addressing the stream. As for the iMessages he showed outside of Insta DMs, all proof was him showing a group chat he wasn't even in. Showing messages from my friends, which isn't me. The only message showing a response from me was when we asked about the drinking game we played. That was after we played it the first night, the night where nothing happened. I liked the game and wanted to play it with other friends at the convention. So I asked for the name. Don't know how it's relevant to anything. Why I went back. Because my friends want to. And I went with them everywhere they went that trip. I would also like to clear up, this all happened when I went back. Nothing happened the first night. Something I also did not admit at first because it's embarrassing and I thought irrelevant. But the second night, another reason I was willing to go back was I heard of a different creator who was in the room I wanted to meet. But when I found out they had left an hour earlier, I was already in the Uber. I had forgotten this until looking back at texts where I said this to a friend the day after. On the next page, she includes some screenshots of DMs and reaffirms that all the messages were always friendly and nothing weird. She says, again, I felt lucky to be talking to a verified account, someone I'd followed and watched for a while. I was uncomfortable with what happened, but trying to swallow it and suck it up so I didn't have to acknowledge or accept it. Although our texting ended a month after, I can see why people find me at fault. But the thought process of someone who went through what I have is a very unique experience, which is why I understand why it seems stupid. Only so many people have been in it to understand. In the next image, she mentions the elevator situation. I walked him out to the elevator. ? We left at the same time. My room was on the other side of the floor. In the hotel, you had a hallway of rooms on one side, elevators connecting them, then the other hall. I was on the opposite side, therefore had to walk through the elevator room. I didn't walk him there. We both headed in that direction. I said, well, bye. And that's when he did the whole elevator is broken bit. Later in the next image, she gives more detail on what happened while they were cuddling. A lot of the cuddling he may have felt was personal, but was just me being drunk. Everyone on the couch was doing the same thing, all drunk, close together. But I get it, I was drunk. I didn't think cuddling automatically meant it was to turn sexual. I didn't know it was an invitation. I wasn't going to push him off in front of everyone. He took it a step further in front of everyone. All because he assumed things and assumed he had the right. As a shy person, I could not speak up in front of him and everyone else, let alone say yes. Even if you wanted to take a step forward sexually, why do it in the open? If you're cautious about consent, why not ask? That's usually the first step. And more important, why does everything have to get taken a step further? And may I reiterate that I was drunk. Then she addresses the claims that she could have moved if she wanted to avoid him. She could have moved. Yes, I got up and sat in the same spot, getting up to drink more, etc. Mentally, I believe in a room, on a sofa, with people on it, you just sit back where you were when you get up. Mentally, I was also drunk. And even if I were to move, that would be an obvious hit to his ego, to him and everyone in the room. A bold move I didn't need to make. I could just deal with it till the night was over. And I didn't want someone I had watched for a while, or with a large following, to hate me for denying to even sit near him. I didn't want to embarrass him or myself. I know it's a dumb thought process. I acknowledge it. After this, she responds to the claim that she chose to stay after her friends left. She stayed when her friends left. I didn't make the conscious decision to choose to stay. My friend left throwing up in her hand and I didn't know. She was so drunk she couldn't hold in her vomit and passed out in our bathroom. And the more the night went on, the drunker I was. Like I said before, I put up with it in the moment because I thought it was the price I had to pay to be around such big creators. Those last 3 points, may I remind you, are not an invitation to be sexual or that I wanted it. And if he thought I did, he could have asked. Well, he assumed because of your body language. We had just met. Why did he think he knew me so well that he could assume how I felt? Assume he knew what my mannerisms meant. You didn't know me. Apparently, you didn't even know my age. But you knew what I wanted? No. He assumed it's what I wanted because why wouldn't I want that from someone like him? And remind me, since when was smiling an invitation? When was sitting next to someone an invitation? Since when was being drunk an invitation? Any laughing I did with your hand under my clothes was out of nerves because I didn't think cuddling would result to that. And my shock left me speechless because I had never been to a guy's hotel room, never done anything sexual, and never expected that cuddling meant what it did. I didn't know if this was normal or not. You touched me for the first time. She continues in a reply to the tweet, "You're a fucking grown man who knows better. Why do I have to be strong and pull away or say stop? It's my fault because I was asking for it, hinting at it. I should have known. But never his for not being able to ask a simple question before doing it. At his age, quote, silence can be consent. A head nod is silent confirmation. In order for confirmation to happen, it needs to follow a question that was never asked. And how is a drunk person supposed to consent? You think I was in the power to consent a 26-year-old man to touch me because I laughed. Quote, but he was drunk too. Personally, when I'm drunk, I don't stick my hand under people's clothes on a couch in a room full of other people without asking. That's just me though. After this, she includes a couple screenshots of messages she received the day following the incident. Hi, I want to make sure you're okay. I didn't like the way George was so touchy. And blank told me about the shirt thing. And I just want to make sure you're all right. Yes, I'm okay. It was definitely a bit weird, but I was drunk, so I didn't feel like doing anything to stop it. Anyway, it's over now, so. Another text said, hey buddy, I wanted to double check with you that George didn't make you uncomfortable at all last night. I saw he was getting really touchy with you, so I just wanted to double check. Smile. Maybe. Bro, I have no clue. Like, in the moment, I was chilling, but thinking back on it, I'm sweating a little bit. Like, damn. And especially after verifying, so he knew I was 18. And I also don't know if I was chilling in the moment because I was drunk. I don't know, I have to ponder on it. Or just forget about it because it's over with, lol. On the next page, she addresses the photo of the over 21 wristband. The wristband. I would like to mention another girl I didn't mention because, like the other guy, she left really early into the night. I'm admitting I didn't mention her because she only tagged along one night and didn't do much. I also didn't know her too well. She was friends with Clay and the girl talking to him. I haven't messaged her since that night until today when she reached out. Then she includes a screenshot of a group chat where another girl verifies that the photo is her hand, not Caiti's. In another reply, Caiti describes how her virginity was brought up during a game they were playing, and why she feels it was impossible for George not to know about it. That night, the game we were playing asked, who was the last to lose their virginity, aka the youngest. This is when I said me because I was 18 and still a virgin. This is also when Clay chimed in to argue for his best friend and say along the lines of, well, he lost his at 19, you aren't that old yet, so he technically would still drink. And he drank. I assume this meant he was listening, but maybe he wasn't. I remember this question because of texts I sent and because it's something I'll never forget. Yes, I know it's hard to remember a question like that thinking back now, but that night he couldn't have forgotten it that quick. Remembering back to my answer just an hour, minutes prior, before making a move didn't seem impossible. With him saying, I didn't remember what happened that night, and nitpicking my story apart with his great drunk memory, I wonder how he can't remember the most important part of it all, aka me saying my age. I don't think he's dumb. I think even if he was talking to someone, especially in Insta DMs, he would check for an age or at least see a bio. Someone who is so concerned about consent wouldn't be so naive. Someone with such a big platform wouldn't risk it unless they knew they could pull the I didn't know card. Her friends influenced her because they hate us? I wonder why. Their hatred grew because of what happened to me. In the remaining paragraphs, Caiti writes that these situations always end up in victim blaming, and that she doesn't want victims to feel forced to have to prove themselves to others in order to be believed. On the final page, she denounces anyone that would spread false allegations to deplatform someone, and rejects any claims that she would do this for clout. Towards the end, she includes, I will be away for a week, and then I will stream a final statement. So once again, you can hear my voice and sincerity, and probably my final statement on it all. The next day, on March 12th, GeorgeNotFound tweeted an apology, which has since been deleted, but later we'll find out why. He says, since reading Caiti's newest post, my perspective on that night and my overall conclusion has massively changed as she introduced new information that I was not aware of at all before. I have much more I will say, but for now, Caiti, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I really hope you can hear my words and try to understand that I did not have any bad intentions. That does not change the fact that you were hurt. I will be saying more soon. Minutes after this apology from George was posted, one of his close friends and another content creator, Sapnap, tweeted his own statement in support of Caiti. First things first, I want to say that I support Caiti and that I think it's incredibly brave to come out and share your story in front of everyone, and I hope you are taking care of yourself and are doing well. I was not there during the time of this allegation, and I didn't know anything about it until a few days ago once everything was public. Because of this, I waited before commenting to organize my thoughts. After seeing all the facts, it is very clear that Caiti is a victim, and everyone should support her and stand by her 100%. I'm honestly really upset as I love George. He's my best friend. But there's no way around the fact that he fucked up and needs to take accountability for what happened. I don't think that George is a bad person. I don't think that he had evil intentions. But it doesn't matter if your actions caused pain. Please give all your love and support to Caiti as she deserves it. Now, as I was researching this story, I thought this was where things wrapped up. But after waking up on the 17th to finish my script, I noticed GeorgeNotFound deleted his previous tweets and apology and uploaded this 27-minute video titled My Response. And from here, I'm pretty sure things will only get messier. Let's dive into it. It starts with George explaining that this is his response to her response to his response to her video, in case you aren't keeping up. He shows on screen his 2 tweets about Caiti's stream, and says that they were only there to show his intention of making a response. Noting that,
First of all, I just want to make it clear that my tweet that I put out after my first statement wasn't somehow admitting to guilt or completely backtracking on what I originally said. My perspective had changed due to new information that Caiti had provided, so now I'm just going to go over Caiti's new statement and talk about what she had to say.
he begins by saying that he only included the group chat messages from her friends in order to prove that the older guys weren't insisting on them drinking more, like Caiti initially described. Then he talks about her mentioning that she felt lucky to be talking to a verified account, and explains that,
Now, this is not something that I was thinking about at all. I wasn't aware that she ever watched my content in the past. That was never brought up. This actually makes me feel pretty bad. The only reason she was messaging me was because I have subscribers or something. I would never want that. Again, the only reason I actually brought up us messaging after the fact was to show that we were still friendly afterwards, and that I didn't know that she was uncomfortable at the time.
After this, he talks about a specific part in her response, where she mentions his friend that she initially left out of the story, and she showed a text message allegedly from that friend, which George claims is not real. To prove this, he calls this friend on the phone for the next 3.5 minutes, while his friend unenthusiastically goes through the entire night, pretty much retelling things exactly the same way George did.
Can genuinely say I had a really good night. That's kind of the impression that I got from everybody else too. Is like everybody was having a good time, but hopefully, you and Caiti can maybe, I don't know if be friends is the right word, but I hope she feels better about it, because I feel bad that she feels this way, but I don't know, it's kind of bad situation. It's just wild that this whole situation came from that night. It was just mind-boggling, dude. I couldn't really believe it, half the shit I was hearing. As someone that was there, other ways that I've heard it being described, from what I was reading and watching online, is actually kind of insane.
Excuse me? Why include this guy in the video? That wasn't exactly the most unbiased eyewitness testimony. But after this, George mentions reaching out to Dream to validate the text message, and he doesn't seem to recall ever seeing it before either. At this point, I'm mostly confused as to how George hasn't just talked directly to Caiti. I know communication is hard, but it's a lot easier than whatever the hell this is. After this, he brings up the part of her response where she talks about the cuddling, mentioning that Caiti never talked about it in her initial video. And without the context, he feels that it paints his actions as intentionally malicious, and as if the unwanted touching happened out of nowhere. Next, he admits something a little concerning.
The next thing that she talks about is that I said she got up and sat back down with me multiple times. She agreed with this, but said that the reason she did this is because, quote, I didn't want someone I had watched for a while or with a large following to hate me for denying to even sit near him. Now this makes me feel terrible. It's something that she mentions throughout, this power imbalance, but this is not something at all that I was thinking about at the time. She was a VidCon invited guest. She had a hotel room on the same floor as Dream. She was friends with my friends. And honestly, I just never imagined that this is something that she could have thought. And I do think that's my problem. I should have been aware of this, or at least the possibility of this being the case. And I am sorry. I feel terrible about it. I've never really thought about power imbalance at all, to be honest. In that room, I wasn't thinking about, YouTube subscribers or fame or power or anything at all like that. I just saw us all as friends, hanging out, having fun. Again, I'm not trying to downplay this by saying this. It is genuinely something that I'm going to be thinking about going into the future.
I'm not sure how someone with over 10 million subscribers has managed to never think about something like power imbalance, but I feel like that's something you need to be aware of, especially as an adult that makes Minecraft content for children.
She says that after Ghosty left, quote, I put up with it in the moment because I thought it was the price I had to pay to be around such big creators. Again, like I said before, this is just not something I even thought she could be thinking, and I'm sorry that I didn't. Next, she talks about me being more touchy as the night went on, and says this: you didn't know me, apparently you didn't even know my age, but you knew what I wanted. No, he assumed it's what I wanted because why wouldn't I want that from someone like him? This is absolutely not how I think about this kind of situation at all. I would never think like that, and honestly, it's kind of an evil way to think about things. Just having the opinion that you can do anything because you're famous or whatever. And I never once remotely thought anything similar to that. And I feel terrible reading those words knowing that you think that about me. I would never think that I'm owed anything from anyone just because I have a YouTube channel, especially in an intimate context. Again, I'm really sorry for this, and it actually has been pretty eye-opening to me, and it's just not how I've ever really thought about stuff before. And I don't really think you're wrong for assuming that I thought like this, because obviously there are people out there that think like that and use that to take advantage of people. And it makes sense that if you think that about me, that you would hate me. But that is not who I am at all. And I just really hope that you can understand that.
Now, I think it's good that George admits that he would never intentionally use his power to get something from someone or make somebody act a certain way. But that doesn't omit the power imbalance from Caiti's point of view. Just because George wasn't aware of it doesn't mean that he's not subconsciously capable of taking advantage of people that want to be around him. Not being aware of this reality makes abuse of power even more of a possibility. After this, George restates that he wasn't aware of any discomfort the entire time, and shows some texts between Dream and Caiti's friend after the hangout, where the situation with George wasn't mentioned a single time. George says that after VidCon, he and Dream assumed that Caiti and her friends didn't hate them and they were all on good terms. He says that there was never a private conversation between him and Caiti prior to her initial stream, and he wished he had known there was a problem. He continues by restating his claim that he never saw or heard her age before the interaction. And because of the over 21 wristband photo from earlier and other context, he thought they were 21. Then he wraps up by saying,
she did say that the level of intimacy that we had together was the furthest that she'd experienced, but to me, it was quite tame. And when I say this, I am not trying to devalue how she feels about this at all. I'm just trying to point out that we clearly viewed things differently. And this is something that I have learned from now, and I will be taking very seriously moving forward. And I am truly sorry, Caiti, for not realizing this and not taking this difference into account. It is clearly something that is extremely important to you, and I'm sorry. Even after everything I've just said, things would be very different if I could just say that I had asked her if she was comfortable and she had said yes. But the fact is, I never did ask this. As I mentioned, there were a lot of things that she said she thought that I wasn't aware of, that if I had known would have changed a lot. And going forward, this will be something that I take into account in every interaction I have with anyone, sexual or not. I am sorry, Caiti, and I am sorry for how this will affect you going forward. And I'm sorry that everything got to this point, but I just hope that after hearing my perspective, you can understand that I never had any bad intentions and never meant to hurt you. I think that is essentially all the information that I can add to the situation. After her first statement, I actually disagreed a lot with how things were portrayed and was pretty confused by a lot of the details. But her most recent response made things a lot clearer to me, and now I do think we agree pretty much on the order of events. We just don't necessarily agree on my intentions, but again, I do really hope that her seeing this can help with that.
During the remaining 5 minutes of the video, George addresses some of the other controversies he's been involved in, namely an off comment he made about the girlfriend of the content creator Puns, and the soundboard incident that happened during the Technoblade charity stream. But this whole video response will be linked down below if you want the full story. With that, we're pretty much caught up on everything surrounding the GeorgeNotFound controversy, and how Caitibugzz' initial stream, sharing her negative experience at VidCon, led to a vague tweet from GeorgeNotFound, followed by a messy response, and an even messier back and forth, which may still be ongoing, depending on when we hear from Caiti next. But now that you have pretty much all the details about this story and the Wilbur Soot controversy, I need to know, what do you think about everything? Tell me that and anything I missed down in the comments. If you haven't seen it yet, I recently posted a video covering the fake allegations against another streamer in the space, Tubbo. It's an absolutely insane situation, so if you made it this far, I highly recommend checking it out. If you want to get caught up with even more internet drama and news, subscribe to catch the next story, and check out any of my recent videos. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.